Welcome to another edition of Brugler's Draft Board here in the BetMGM Casino studio. Bowl games officially starting to roll in here. So Dane, USC Iowa left tackle for the Trojans, Austin Jackson, doesn't seem to be in the same tier as Andrew Thomas out of Georgia, Jedrick Wills out of Alabama, or Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. But is it fair to say that he's the top guy in tier 2?
Yeah, he might be, and a big part of that is the movement skills that he offers. He has got agile feet, flexible hips, he can handle himself in space, and that's a big part of what you want at the tackle position. And he's going to have a tough matchup going up against Iowa and A.J. Epinesa. And these are two players that were in the top 15 of my mock draft, two guys we talked about before, and I think it matches up really well for exactly what teams want to see from Austin Jackson. Epinesa is a good athlete, but he doesn't scream off the edge like a Von Miller or the type of rusher who relies simply on burst. Instead, he has the heavy hands that he uses to bully, create consistent movement, and then he allows him to detach from blocks and find that newly created path to the quarterback. And so for Austin Jackson, he's a really smooth mover. We know that. But Epinesa is going to go right at him and challenge him with power, with hand tactics. And that's where Jackson really needs to show that he's up to task. He has those eager hands, but the placement is wild. And that opens his chest. That allows rushers into his body. And so Jackson, for him to stymie Epinesa, really needs to play with better sync, better discipline, properly use his hands so he can create that firm base and keep Epinesa outside of the pocket.
All right, how about Iowa tackle Tristan Wirfs? We talked about him last week. Let's talk about him again, because this guy is the second tackle to go in your mock draft. And let's just remind everybody what he does so well and what kind of matchup he's looking at this weekend.
Yeah, as good as Austin Jackson is, I don't think he's the best tackle in this game. I think that belongs to Tristan Wirfs, Iowa's right tackle. He's so quick to gain position, stay square to rushers. He'll use his hands. He can absorb rushers, redirect that power so he can shield the pocket. Where he gets himself in trouble is he'll tend to overset in pass protection. But he has that big man twitch, which really allows him to quickly reset, stay in position, and scouts love his balance, his salvage technique, his versatility, because we have seen him at both left and right tackle, and so knowing that he can play either spot is certainly something that teams will enjoy. He's currently my number 2 offensive tackle behind only Jedrick Wills. I think he has a chance to be a top 10, top 12 type of talent.
Let's move on here. Utah State quarterback Jordan Love. Now, Love, we've talked about him a couple times this season, somebody that you believe scouts will fall in love with because of his traits. So with that being said, right now, where does he stand as a projected pick, and where do you think he can end up in April?
Well, he's already declared, so we know that he will be part of this draft class. There was some, debate. Would he go back to school? Would he transfer? Is he coming out? He is coming out, and he entered this season with so much hype as a first-round pick, and you didn't really see the production you expected from a guy with that type of hype around him in 2019. 17 to 16 touchdown interception ratio, not exactly what you want to see in a first-round player. But the blame doesn't fall all on him. You look at the new coach, new system, only one returning starter this year. So all of that is context that belongs in his evaluation. And, it might sound strange, but in a lot of ways, his evaluation starts right now. And what I mean by that is between now and April, that's what's going to determine where he's drafted. The Senior Bowl, the Combine, workouts, meetings with teams, it's all going to be paramount to his final grade. And it starts with the bowl game. Kent State, they rank 120th in the FBS in total defense. So Love should be expected to play well, and he should play well. And it could be a springboard into the draft process. But, we actually did have some breaking news recently with he did get invited to the Senior Bowl, so that's a good step. On the negative side, he was popped for marijuana, and this past weekend, a misdemeanor charge. We'll have to see how that plays out.
All right, moving on to the Mountain West, and the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year, Curtis Weaver, Boise State edge rusher this year, 19.5 tackles for loss, 13.5 sacks, but not the best athlete. Is that fair to say?
I think that is fair to say. And this is why this bowl game is going to be so important, because in a lot of ways he's going to be facing the best competition that he has faced. Just both, I think Boise State in general facing this Washington team. It's the Chris Peterson Bowl, former team versus soon-to-be former team. And I think the spotlight's going to be on Weaver because, like you said, he leads the Mountain West in sacks and tackles for loss, but he's not that top-tier athlete. And so that's something that teams have been struggling to get over. But he plays with power. He can detach from blocks. He grinds away at the corner. And so the stats look great, but he also beat up on some pretty subpar competition. And so the NFL teams want to see him do it against some better players. Unfortunately, Trey Adams, the Huskies left tackle, could be a second-round pick. He won't be playing in this game. But right tackle, Jared Hilbers, he will be playing, and he put together an impressive senior season at Washington. A very natural athlete, stays under control, understands blocking angles. So when Weaver and Hilbers match up, who's going to win? That's something scouts are going to be keyed in on. Weaver's hand power or Hilber's lower body movements. I think that's something that is going to be really interesting from an evaluation standpoint.
All right, let's wrap things up with another edge rusher, this time of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. That's Carlos Basham, cousin of Jets outside linebacker Terrell Basham. And we've talked about him before, too. Finishes the year with 9 sacks. Right now, is he a day 2 guy? Is he a day 3 guy? And what did you think of his year overall?
Oh, he had a fantastic year. Like you said, I mean, 9 sacks right now. I think Wake Forest isn't known for producing a lot of high-end talent, but this year they have a handful of guys that have interested NFL scouts, and Boogie Basham, he's the top guy. He's already close to double-digit sacks on the year, and I think that's even more impressive because when you watch him on film, yes, he will rush off the edge on early downs, but they move him around. They'll kick him inside. They'll put him at nose tackle a lot of times, especially on passing downs. So that cuts into his production, but he's still been able to reach the quarterback, inflate those sack numbers. So he has had a terrific senior or junior year. And so if he declares, I think he's in that second round, third round discussion.
There you have it. 5 guys to keep your eye on as bowl games start to come into play here. And that was another edition of Brugler's Draft Board here in the BetMGM Casino Studio. Dane, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Ethan.